The balloons were still swaying, pale and deflated, caught in the ceiling fan's weak breeze. Blue and green. Lucas turned 8. He stood alone by the cake, the wax candles dripping into the frosting. I watched his face, the slow, crumbling realization that the chairs were empty. Nobody came. Not an RSVP, not a text message, just silence. My own brother, my sisters, my mother. They simply chose absence. Control. That is the only thing you have left. I scooped the melting cake onto a plate. Lucas forced a smile. A practiced, inherited lie. I pretended not to see the betrayal reflected in his eyes. A week later, the text arrived. Not a sorry, not a happy belated. Just an invitation blasted out to the entire family chain. It was from Mom, my niece's sweet 16. The photo was glossy, aggressive. The price tag, printed beneath the venue details, was the true hook. $1,500 per person. Venmo me. The audacity was a cold, pure shock. The sheer, transactional nature of their affection laid bare. They skipped my son's birthday, a free afternoon, and now demanded a month's rent for an extravagant party they could barely afford. This isn't about celebration, this is about extraction. I looked at Lucas, now quietly coloring a picture of a superhero. I saw the fragile trust I had spent 8 years building, and I saw the calculated cruelty that sought to undermine it. The emotional betrayal had a price tag, and now I saw the true conflict. I wasn't their son or brother. I was their cash machine. I sent the Venmo, a simple, decisive act. Not $1,500, not zero. I sent exactly $1. The note was even simpler. Congratulations. The silence on the group chat was immediate. Confused. Then I changed the locks on the 2 empty bedrooms in my house, the rooms they used to crash in on weekends, the reason they insisted I buy a 4-bedroom place. I removed the automatic gate code. I blocked every single phone number. I was severing the tether. They think the money is the tether. They are wrong. The access is the tether. I had endured years of this. The emergency loans that were never repaid. The utility bills I was guilted into covering. The trips I funded under the guise of family bonding. My money, my time, my emotional energy all poured into a bottomless, demanding void. The missing birthday party was just the final, unanswerable evidence that my value was purely monetary. But there was a deeper, colder truth I had been suppressing, a detail that always sat wrong. I began my deep dive not into my own finances, but into theirs. I knew my mother had a second, smaller savings account she guarded fiercely. I used a simple, brute force password recovery, her deceased dog's name and birth year. Predictable. The account history was illuminating. Over the last 3 years, hundreds of small deposits were made, always on the 1st of the month, always in cash, always routed immediately to a third-party account, and the total amount perfectly matched the supposed inheritance from my grandfather that they always claimed was tied up in probate. There was no probate. There was a monthly bribe. The final reveal arrived a day later when I managed to access a folder on my mother's email titled Retirement. It wasn't a plan, it was a communication log with an independent financial advisor. The truth exploded onto the screen in cold legal text. They weren't struggling. They were comfortable. The demands for money were never needs. They were tests. They were a perverse form of control, designed to keep me emotionally and financially subordinated. But the most shocking discovery wasn't the money. It was a thread of old emails between my mother and my estranged father dating back 18 years. An admission, a confession of a deep, historical lie. My father had left because of my mother's constant emotional manipulation, yes, but the final straw, the one thing she never wanted exposed, was the truth about Lucas. I wasn't Lucas's biological father. The DNA test I had run 2 years ago, under the guise of an ancestry project, flashed on my secondary screen, confirming the suppressed result: 0% match. Lucas was the child of a brief affair my wife had before we met. My mother knew. My entire family knew. They maintained the lie because I was the stable provider. I was the source of income that kept the facade standing. The emotional betrayal was total. They weren't just taking my money, they were taking my identity as a father, trading it for monthly cash. 2 days after the dollar transfer, the siren was the only sound in the quiet suburb. The police. I opened the door, calm. 2 officers. My mother was standing hysterically by the gate, pointing at my house. "He's locked us out! He stole money!" she shrieked. "He broke into my accounts! He's my son and he's abusing us!" I stepped out, my posture straight, my eyes level. I addressed the officers, ignoring the flailing woman. "Officers," I said, my voice low and steady, "I have not stolen anything. I have cut off the family I support. She is referring to an account I recently reviewed which contains $180,000 in liquid assets. Her financial distress is a carefully crafted lie." I held up a manila envelope. "I am the victim of emotional and financial extortion. And this," I handed the officer the envelope containing the bank records, the email confession, and the DNA test result, "is the full narrative. I request a restraining order, effective immediately. Not because of my son's birthday, but because of the years of calculated deception." My mother saw the envelope. She saw the officer's eyes flick down to the documents. The hysteria vanished, replaced by the same cold, primal terror Eleanor's face held at the wedding. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The truth had found its light. I didn't wait for her arrest. I simply stepped back into my house, the officers moving to intercept her. I walked to Lucas's room. He was asleep, the superhero drawing clutched in his hand. I looked at the boy I raised, the boy they used. The paternity was irrelevant now. Love is not a blood test. I closed the door gently. I was safe. Lucas was safe. The silence in the house, broken only by the fading siren, was the sound of a life regained. I sat down, feeling the immense crushing weight of the past lift. They chose money and lies. I chose peace. I did not pity them. I was simply free.